I see you turn your mic up a little bit.
Something on the side. Try to.
1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's start. Welcome everybody. GM. I'm gonna start with GM, of course. How's everybody doing? Everyone enjoying the conference so far?
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you all for being here. So this is actually our first crypto Web3 panel for our ACE Next Gen conference. So I'm very excited to be moderating that today. Just to see the crowd here. Do you guys invest in crypto? How familiar are we with crypto? Do you know Bitcoin? Do you know Bitcoin? Ethereum? Solana? Dogecoin? Bitcoin? So we all know. We got some. Yeah, we're all DJs in the house. NFT holders? No? So people are pretty familiar. This is a good crowd. So my name is Chewy Jang. I've been part of ACE Next Gen for a very long time, 9 years actually. I currently serve on the board of ACE Next Gen, and my background is in small business. So I had a children's clothing company for 12 years called Kids Dream from the manufacturing wholesale side. Earlier this year, I opened up a restaurant called Seoulbap down in SoCal in California. My journey to Web3 actually is thanks to ACE Next Gen. So 3 years ago, this was when I was dabbling in real estate, got my real estate license. I was serving on the board with Zhang, who's actually here, who was also speaking earlier today. He's always been the tech guy. I knew that he started a new company after he sold his last company. Something in Web3, something about the metaverse, I knew nothing about it at that time. But as a real estate agent, especially in LA, there's so many of us, so you have to figure out how are you going to be different? How can you what kind of clients can you pull in to be a different real estate agent? So I knew at the time crypto was a big thing. Everyone was making millions of dollars in crypto, so I started taking workshops and figuring out how can I get into this space, primarily how can I sell real estate to people about crypto. And that led me to messaging him one day about, in the metaverse, are there like landmarks in real estate in metaverse yet? And he messaged back saying like, are you interested in this space? I just raised $3.6 million pre-seed from Korean investors. I'm looking for a Korean chief of staff. And I was like, say no more, Femme. I got you. I don't know anything about it, but I know that's a field I want to be in. So he invited me to come to New York, actually, NFT NYC, this is when NFT was like blowing up. That was my first entryway to Web3, anything about, and I just like fell in love with it. The people were so passionate about all the stuff that they're creating. The parties were super fun, and I'm like, this is what I need to be. So that's how I entered the space. So that is actually my rabbit hole story. That's going to be a question I asked them. It's like, how did you enter the crypto space? That's how I got obsessed with it. A little background on what we do at Spaceport. It's a company that Zhang, the CEO, Lita Tang is the CTO and co-founder, also ACE Next Gen member, and also Wendy Pham, also from ACE, also works for us. So there's 4 of us from ACE actually in that company, which also is a testament to what we do here at ACE Next Gen. We're all about relationship building. We like to work together. When we have a business, we try to hire within. When we have suppliers, customers, it's all within the group. And I think that's one of the most wonderful things about ACE Next Gen. So really lovely to have all of you guys here. Spaceport, what we do. So we are a blockchain-based tech platform for scalable licensing. So what we do is we empower the brands and IP owners, intellectual property owners, to manage and monetize their IP, especially in the digital world and UGC platforms. UGC is user-generated content. For example, Roblox, Fortnite, Zepeto. There's a bunch of different platforms like that. So what does that all mean? So in real life terms, we're currently working with a big IP holder called Toei Animation. So they have some IPs like Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, so you guys might recognize those animes. We got the opportunity to work with one of their new IPs, Hypergalactic, to bring it to Roblox. So not only are we opening the IP to just one creator and one developer, it's more scalable IP licensing and the way that we let a lot of different creators who are capable to create experiences and UC products with the IP. So that's what we do at Spaceport. And I'll pass it on to our lovely panelists. We're all badass female leaders in the space. So, Kelly.
Exciting story. I think mine's a little boring, but anyway, hi Hi everyone, thank you for coming to the crypto panel. I've heard so many different stories in other industries that feels like my 20-year career in finance is so boring. But anyway, I currently run a liquid venture fund called Decentral Capital. We call us liquid venture because we're using a venture mindset in terms of investing in high growth sectors and winners in those sectors. But we're liquid in the sense that because of the uniqueness of crypto, a lot of early stage companies, they can monetize through tokens. So we invest in tokens, usually from the secondary market or maybe in the pre-TGE, so-called token generation stage, so that we have the benefit of having a transparent market where we can see the price and hopefully getting in at a good price, but also not subject to the typical VC lockup, which is usually more than 5 years or 10 years. So before crypto, I was in TradFi for more than 15 years. So my last job in TradFi is actually investing in liquid alternatives. I'm sure every one of you heard about hedge fund, venture funds, they're about liquid, right? And then we're trying to replicate those type of returns by using liquid instruments such as equities and fixed income. And as we're still probably in the equity bull market now. It is very hard to find assets that are liquid, that has return, and not correlated with equities market. And that's how I found or dug into the Bitcoin rabbit hole in 2017. And since then, the world is different. Blockchain is not only a technology, but a new business model. So since then, I switched to crypto. I was persuading my company at that time, which is a big TradFi asset manager, to do crypto. They're saying it's too risky, it's a fad. And then I finally decided to join a crypto company. And you probably heard of CoinDesk, which is like the Wall Street Journal of crypto. I helped them build a data indexing business. And then I went to Fidelity Digital Asset and trying to build an investment business for Fidelity to invest in crypto. And then now I'm here in liquid venture.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm Lori, and thanks Chewy for inviting me. And I'd love to see a lot of familiar faces. Hi Ian. So I'm actually part of NAV for a long time. I'm sure some of you are familiar with, and that's how I was able to connect with a lot of friends here. So how I started, actually I've been in TradFi, traditional finance, investment banking for over 20 years now. I started as a stockbroker at UBS and transitioned into private wealth, MetLife, HSBC, and my last corporate job was JP Morgan. I was there for 8 years, managing private wealth in New York City. I had a team of over 30 private wealth advisors, and we were responsible for about $3 billion in New York City in terms of asset under management. So how did I transition? I guess, for me is during COVID time, I was doing my regular Zoom meeting with a lot of close friends, actually a lot of them from NAP too, that we actually repurposed the Zoom meeting to, hey, since we're meeting, right, that's form of think tank, and that's come up with different business ideas. So every other week, each of us will come up with one idea, we challenge each other to be able to find the right thing. So we were working on the app. I was working on an NFT marketing agency until it was not sustainable anymore. And then we finally landed on this idea. But at the time, I was at JP Morgan. Really obviously it's quite stressful, to say the least. So I was managing a big team, a big responsibility. About 3 years ago, at the same time, I had cancer. So that was when I took a medical leave for a year and a half. And really think hard, right? What do I want to do? And I've never taken a break in my life from work. So I decided to leave after my medical leave and never went back to corporate. And so just went to Asia, travel around, to see things and pick up the skills. I always wanted to learn drumming, so I started becoming a drummer. I formed a band in Thailand. And then start picking up badminton and go to tournaments and stuff. And at the same time, I was still working on the business idea. So that's how we landed this business idea at the end of 2022, and we wrote a white paper. And then, now we're 2 weeks away from launching our prototype in terms of actual product. So that's close to 2 years now. That's my journey, it's quite personal. But at the same time, my experience is just investment is something I love, right? That's all I do in the last 23 years. I still have security license and whatnot. And right now, KyoVest, right? This is the startup I'm part of as a CEO and co-founder, that we're building an investment platform that actually, provide customized strategy. And also, we have our proprietary risk hedging feature that we have created, which we're going to IP to really launch, and that allow more adoption for people to really invest in crypto with a control risk. So that's what I'm doing now, and I think it's awesome to work with a global team, which I'll get into later. So that's what my journey is, that's my team, and of course, if you see all the avatars, that's a requirement to be in the crypto world.
Wow, some definitely big shoes to fill here. Really amazing stories from both of you. I'm Kristina. I also started off in traditional finance as well. I worked at Goldman Sachs as a software engineer, and then I switched into sales and trading on the equity side, so I also have my licenses that are not really required in the crypto space. I fell into crypto, honestly, through TikTok and GameStop. So do we all remember what happened with GameStop and it went viral? So I went down a rabbit hole covering that and making TikTok videos about it. And the more that I started looking into the culture, into the community, I started to see there was a lot of similarities between TradFi, traditional finance, and DeFi. And so taking my background, especially when it comes from traditional investing and an engineering background, and bringing it into blockchain, because that's really all it is, right? It's technology and finance built into one. And so my employer, I work at Econia Labs, they actually found me through TikTok, because there was a huge gap between retail investors like ourselves and understanding how the developers work and how they built the blockchain, all the different kinds of use cases that will bridge into it. So that's a little bit about my background. I'm very Gen Z. I'm always on TikTok every single day, but it's actually a very interesting indicator sometimes where I get my news source back in the day used to be on Bloomberg, right? Wake up 6:30 a.m., read CNBC, read The Street, and then go on my Bloomberg terminal. And now, it's Twitter, it's TikTok, and Instagram. So the world is definitely changing. I think the generation is getting younger and younger, and some of the people that I work with are high school dropouts and they're 19, which is nothing I've ever experienced before when I was working at Goldman Sachs.
How amazing are these ladies? Also, Kristina is a classically trained pianist. She's also a former Miss Mission Philippines. And she has a combined following of 20,000 followers.
Yeah, it took a long time to put myself out there, but I think it's opened up a lot of opportunities. And I'm actually competing for Miss Dallas this Saturday. So pageantry, you know Filipinos, we like pageants. So I'm competing tomorrow, actually.
Good luck.
Let's start with Kristina here. As a content creator with a focus on Web3, first, how would you define Web3? Let's start there. And second, how do you approach educating and engaging your audience, especially women, about finance and tech? And is there something that strategies have worked best, breaking down complex topics like crypto for non-technical audience?
Yeah. So when I explain Web3, I always take it back to, probably like in the 90s when I had a first dial-up computer, right? Web 1 is essentially just reading from the internet. You can't really make any edits. Web 2 is what we're in right now. We can read and write. So I can have an Instagram page, have my TikTok page, have a MySpace, Friendster, whatever you have. And then Web 3 is essentially read, write, and own. So you have an ownership of part of the internet, whether that's kind of there's a lot of social protocols out there, or even kind of buying your own domain name instead of like using a GoDaddy, which is a centralized server. So that's kind of how I would explain it. And then what was the other question?
Just around content creating approach, how do you approach educating the audience with, especially women that might not be familiar with tech finance?
If there's one thing I learned from working on Wall Street is that there's a lot of acronyms, a lot of gatekeeping, and a lot of, for lack of better words, mansplaining, I'm sorry. But I think really at the end of the day, it's breaking it down for everyone to understand. Actually saying the acronyms, right? We all have our licenses. We have to understand, we took a test, so we can talk to clients about certain things. But when you are just getting new to this space, especially if you're, again, a 19-year-old TikToker or maybe an immigrant who comes from a working class family that might not have access to that education, I feel like it is my duty to take the information that I've learned working in this industry and make it simple and easy to understand, to break those barriers. So when it does come to making content, I try to make it relatable, I try to make it educational, also super simple that probably a fifth grader can understand, because essentially you want everyone to have a piece of this rather than replicating traditional finance and leaving out marginalized groups.
We have one video to show.
Oh yeah, it's one of my TikTok videos. Watch. We opened the coolest PR package from OKX. We'll explain what it is. OKX is a crypto exchange that offers both centralized and decentralized trading. Centralized trading and exchanges are basically controlled by one entity, think Coinbase or Robinhood, whereas decentralized exchanges or DEXs are non-custodial, meaning users have full control over their funds at all times. OKX offers spot, margin, perps, options, and cross-chain trading. Okay, guys. So that's about, I think, 30 seconds. And I feel like a lot of times when I speak to people who are trying to get into the crypto space, they don't understand the difference between centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, and non-custodial versus custodial. So within that 30 seconds, not only did I show a really cool PR package, which people like to see whenever they're scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, I also provide education in there. And so when it comes to educating others, I always make sure that it's relatable and it talks to the audience that I want it to be, which is an audience that might not have our licenses or might not have the distinguished backgrounds that you have here.
Thank you. And Lori, as a founder in the space, how has been building on blockchain? And I know you're fundraising right now. Is there a difference between fundraising for a blockchain company compared to a traditional company?
I would say that I think building a team, like fundamentally, right, it's the same, like wherever you go, right, like build a solid team. But I think the best thing about crypto world is that I get to tap into like a lot of global talent because the industry is still new, right? So my team, as you can see, I have team from US, East Coast, West Coast, have a team member in Asia and one in Dubai, right? So like we all work remotely, and because the industry is so new, I have to go, like, I really need to find those talents through different conferences. I think that's a little different than a traditional finance. Like I just came back from Asia like 48 hours ago. I was in Asia for a month. I went to Korea Blockchain Week and then Token 2029, which Kelly was there too. That was in Singapore, and also went to Taiwan for some Web3 meetings. So I think at the end of the day, it was like, it's super exciting in terms of recruiting actually talents everywhere, and they're new talents, they're younger talents, right? Like you think about crypto world, like, for example, my chief of intelligence, she's been in the crypto world. She used to work for Kraken, which is like one of the largest exchanges, for 5 years, right? And that's like long for crypto history. She's more senior than I am, right, literally. And I would say that on the fundraising side, the same thing in between, like, entrepreneur and building a small business. I think the VCs and angels still, they want to see you as a team, as a person, get to know who you are. But the difference is that a lot of VCs and angels, or even family offices, they're very open to early stage startups, right? Because this industry is so new, they're looking for a solid idea that you can execute, right? And the team can execute, but at the same time, going back to people, right? Can you pivot, right? If you have to, right? So I think that's one of the biggest differences. A lot more funding opportunity for pre-seed round. A lot more boutique VCs who are looking for like very specialized, like DeFi, gaming, metaverse. So and they are very upfront about it. So I think fundraising wise, it's same but also different. I would say in that sense.
Thank you. Let's really dig deep into the different types of people building on space. So Kelly, with your extensive background in both traditional finance and digital space, how do you identify high growth opportunities within the Web3 industry? Specifically, are there sectors that you're more bullish on?
So our investment thesis has been, as I mentioned, identifying high growth areas, right? In crypto, I would define growth in two aspects. One is the ecosystem itself. As you guys probably heard of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, they're all different blockchains, right? I view different blockchains as almost like different countries. They provide the basic infrastructure for you to build applications on top of. So different countries have different culture, different type of infrastructure, different type of cost of doing businesses, and we are trying to identify the type of blockchain ecosystem that can provide the best growth opportunity for both the developers and the users. Because the ideal scenario is you are building a flying wheel effect that your chain is cool, people want to build on top of it, you're able to attract good builders who will build great applications and users will come, right? Whether they come to make money or they come for fun. So that's one area. And the second area is by sectors, right? So this is more on the application level. Lori mentioned there's gaming, there's DeFi, there are different type of applications, and I think the past cycle is more about DeFi, right? Because finance is always the basic infrastructure to finance a lot of different applications, and this cycle, it's encouraging, but still early stage, as you see real applications in terms of either DePing, which is decentralized infrastructure, gaming, which regular people can use, and AI, which is also a promising area. So I think the tall tree or the end goal is really blockchain will onboard the next billion users, and ultimately, this is my belief, and we actually built a taxonomy in crypto when I was at CoinDesk. All the businesses you see today, like in equities, there are sectors, industries, right? All these type of industries could be disrupted by blockchain. Basically, it's almost like upgrading your plumbing system in your old house, right? So you can have a more efficient infrastructure to grow your business.
What is your favorite use case then now for blockchain crypto currently? And how would you explain the value potential of blockchain technology to someone new to the space, especially in real world terms?
We were just talking about there are a lot of fun and exciting things at this stage. Me coming from TradFi, I feel like the end use case and the more exciting thing is really breaking the barriers of entry and removing all the intermediaries, right? So going back to my TradFi career, it's all about democratizing investment, right? So my previous careers in ETFs, and ETFs as a vehicle really democratized investing in equities because everyone can buy SPY ETF now, right? And now when it comes to alternative investments or investment opportunities that are close to retail, right? You cannot invest in venture fund unless you're institution or high net worth. And crypto is here to disrupt, basically allow regular people to invest in early stage businesses. And there are a lot of gatekeepers in terms of trading, in terms of settlement, in terms of investment management. I think the end world will really be everything, every type of asset, maybe this piece of chair, this building, could be freely traded on chain in a peer-to-peer basis without intermediary and in a trustless fashion, but also safe and transparent. That's the end goal, right? I think from a technology perspective, we're already getting there because we probably heard of tokenization. You can essentially put a lot of information on chain in a transparent format. The challenge is really there is regulatory hurdle, right? Because you could argue, and I'm pretty sure we can argue within this room, people have different views on do you want all the options without protection or you want somebody to curate it for you, right? So that's why that's regulation when it comes to investor protection, because as any new business, the failure rate is very high. And the second is still we need, that's why I think all your business makes a lot of sense, is for regular people, how do I know what to invest in, right? How do I know what is growth area, what is a risk? And ultimately, if you look at the broader asset allocation, which traditionally is 60-40, right? Fixed income equities. If I want to introduce Bitcoin and other crypto assets into my portfolio, how much should I own and how does that interact with my existing portfolio? I think there are still a lot of exciting problems to be solved, but I think the biggest use case for blockchain is really open up the gate, bring things on chain, so at least you have the options available.
I think for me, it's all about tokenized asset, right? Like in Korea, they already work on, they're working on tokenized gold, right? Just think about the real estate you own or anything like property, it can be tokenized, right? So that would, as a business owner, and this is an entrepreneur conference, right? Think about, it's all about leveraging, right, in your business. So think about how much more, trading, spending, purchasing power you can get from, tokenize your actual real, it's called the RWA, you'll see those abbreviation, the real world asset. So that's something that I'm excited about because that's gonna really help in terms of adoption, right? From like people who are not familiar with blockchain, really to get introduced to the asset.
I think mine is meme coins. I think it's one of the most interesting ways to onboard people because it's a part of culture. any meme that goes live, you think it's funny, instead of sending it to a friend, you could just buy into it, and just the virality of it can go wild. So think of Mudang, because everyone kind of, I saw an ad for TSA pre-check that has Mudang, so it's really interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting how we've got taken like this meme culture that's typically Gen Z and younger, these high schoolers purchasing this, and then now it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's with some of these larger institutions. Another one is Dogecoin, right? Like when I first started actually trading or getting money into this, other than the engineering part of it, understanding what the blockchain is, I looked into Dogecoin or Shiba Inu. So it's a piece of human culture that I think is actually onboarding more users, because that's something we get, right? Like we understand if something is funny, and if I'm sending this meme to you, I could also send you that token. And additionally, I think the other one that you had mentioned is democratization. So as a TikTok content creator, I think I get like some money from TikTok for posting some videos or going live, but they do take a huge portion. So there's a lot of intermediaries taking profit from essentially the work that I've been doing. And essentially with websites like Pump.Fund, has anyone heard of that? A few of us. You can launch your own token, right? And so essentially if someone wants to pay me for some of the content that I make, my financial content, they could invest into my token or purchase a token. Essentially it could just be a meme, instead of having to pay residuals to these platforms like TikTok or Instagram or even Venmo.
Right. It's almost like tokenizing real estate and tokenizing
Personality.
IT. Yeah, culture, right?
We actually just got the rights to license Doge from Dogecoin. We need Mudang. That's a new IP.
For those of you who doesn't know Mudang, could you explain what Mudang is?
Oh yeah, so it's a hippo in
I
Thailand.
wish I could pull it up right
I
now.
know, if you Google it, it's probably on like every big like publication right now. I think it was featured on like Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal. And essentially, I don't know who did it, because a lot of times, you know, the industry is more anonymous. Someone made it into a meme coin. And overnight, it went up over 1,400%, and the total market cap is over $350 million. So as in, a lot of people put money into it. I don't want to say invest, but a lot of people put money into it, so much to the point that it was over $350 million. And it was just a meme.
Because we're talking about meme coins, let's dig a little bit more into different coins. This is not an investment advice or anything like that, but just to kind of touch on different coins that you're talking to your audience about.
You know, typically getting and putting your money into some of these assets can be really risky, right? Just because Mudang went up 350 million doesn't immediately mean it's going to stay there. And understanding the basics of finance, of, you know, don't invest more than you can afford to lose. Don't invest if you have like credit card debt, or don't invest if you don't have 3 to 6 months cash savings. Those are all kind of the basics that I break down. But once you get to a level where you are interested in diversifying your assets, I personally just look at some of the big blue chip ones. So there's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, those are the big ones. And the market cap of Bitcoin is 2.2 trillion. And with the ETFs, as we had chatted about, a lot of institutional flow is going into there. So once we have these larger corporations and a lot of money, it kind of helps stabilize, rather than a pool of, you know, let's say 19-year-olds making this meme coin go up. But I always think it's very interesting. You know, I almost make it synonymous to gambling when it comes to meme coins, but it is a very interesting way to get your toes wet into crypto, because one, it's super relatable to see these memes, and two, the onboarding process is becoming much easier than it was before.
So Lori and I met at Consensus, which is a conference, a crypto conference in Austin. The space is male-dominated heavily. So of course I have to ask the question, with all the women here, are there challenges being a female in the space? There are challenges that, especially in the crypto space, being so male-dominated.
I mean, I've been working in the male-dominant industry for so long. I mean, you can say the same thing for traditional finance, right? I think crypto, maybe, I mean, definitely gender-wise, there are still a lot of men, right? But also age-wise, there are so many young people. I literally met projects which are funded by high schoolers, and they are actually can be quite successful. And I think maybe I take a different view, right? I don't have to review like all the gender, I'm minorities, or I'm disadvantaged. I'm more like for people who are really into crypto, you have to really keep an open mind. Because for me, as a traditional investor for so long, and you look at those projects and you look at the valuation, right? It's not like apples to apples. You could compare a decentralized trading exchange versus a centralized exchange, although they are converging. Because you're investing in early technology, the multiples can be very high or beyond rational, right? Then you have to really think about the art and science of fundamental analysis, which is trying to put a value of discounted cash flows, and some of them don't even have cash flows, right? Versus the potential. So this is where the intersection of fundamental analysis met venture, right? So that's one thing. And second is, I try to at least keep an open mind and throw myself out there, going to all the crypto parties you mentioned. Some of them are very wild, definitely not the one I go to working on Wall Street, but really talking to young people, I understand their mentality. I also have two very young analysts working with me, and I always joke that their view on the market is between bullish and uber bullish. Where me, from a traditional finance, you always think about risk, what could happen, what could go wrong. So I think what this industry needs, again, there's still a lot of optimism out there, even the industry has been through like 3 to 5 cycles already, is for people from both sides, right? Young people who come up with creative ideas, but also veterans who have done real businesses before, who have managed risk, to really converge to a point that we can channel this creative energy into real world applications that can benefit both sides, and hopefully as we go mature, there will be less of a boom and bust, but more sustainable growth in the future.
Well, I would say for me, I'm quite comfortable being a male-dominated, because basically I just give my past life. It was like male-dominated, like white male who are older than me, right? Now I'm in this like different part of the world that, I kid you not, I was at Token 2029, I was in Singapore, and I was at one of the side events. So the VCs or all the panelists, right? Oh, obviously, all the startup founders will show up there because there's a line of VCs. I kid you not, like 90% of them are men, like attendees, right? And 80% of them are in their 20s with a t-shirt, jean, and a name tag, CEO, right? It's like everyone is CEO there, and that's the kind of environment I'm in now. So I would say one thing though, from my experience in Asia, which is booming, right? In terms of crypto, like it's almost like 9-day versus like the US and Asia or even Middle East. Is that one, I do see a lot of female presence as partners in VCs. So they are decision makers, right? That's one thing. And second thing, I noticed, I don't know why, a lot of BD people are like very attractive females in Asia. So, I don't know why, Chewy can argue with that. So, I don't know why, but yeah, so like these are people, if you think about it, they are decision makers, partners, right? BDs are like the people who bring in revenues, right? So I do see that female, women play a very, very important role in this field. And I did start meeting a lot more female co-founders as well.
That was really funny what you said about BD people.
So true.
Yeah, I guess it's very accurate. I also came from traditional finance, so it was very male-dominated. It was much older, and so something that is very interesting about this space is that people are ranging. Some people that I work with range from 19 to 27. Like the company that I work for, they raised 6.5 million from Dragonfly, which is another VC, and they raised that at 25 and 26. So it's really interesting how that has shifted from kind of what we used to think of traditional finance or raising a company or being a CEO can be someone who's much younger. And also think too, one thing that has really helped me is forcing myself to put myself out there. I used to be very shy, especially in these male-dominated industries, and I feel like very afraid, but I realize that a platform that I have is TikTok, is social media, and it does allow me to, one, get the job that I'm at now, and two, onboard more clients. So two of the largest grossing platforms in the meme generation space, or the, I guess, token launching space, Pump.Fun and Moonshot, those two are very, very large. They are 19 years old, but I was able to make content for them and have established that connection just by DMing them. So I use, at least for me, something to my advantage. I know the TikTok space, I know social media, I know how to educate others and present myself and find things that are viral. And instead of trying to, go to an investor dinner where I might get a little bit afraid or not know how to understand some of the social dynamics, I leverage what I can do for myself, and that has helped me a lot.
Do we have any questions from the audience? We have 10 minutes left.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say about crypto that it has like a very big use of energy or environmental impact. I'm curious what you guys who are inside the field, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it depends on what aspect you're talking about, right? So on the bad side, probably people criticize Bitcoin mining is consuming a lot of energy. But if you put it in the bigger picture, right? Bitcoin mining, the energy consumption versus even the electricity we use in these buildings. So people did the calculation where Bitcoin mining's energy consumption is probably less than 10% of all the big banks running offices and the electricity they use. And then when you think about Bitcoin's utility, right, it's really alternative storage of value, right? So any country's fiat currency is eventually backed by the government's credit itself, right? People say it's backed by the armies or the weapons, right? So people need sort of a global type of alternative storage of value that's not controlled by any government. So Bitcoin has that utility, right? On the other hand, for all the other blockchains, most of the blockchain on this stage are switching to proof of stake, which is instead of running energy to solve a hard math problem, you're actually putting money at stake. So if you're lying or you're doing something that's not basically not validating the blockchain correctly, your money at stake will be taken. So that's another type of consensus mechanism that will consume much less energy. On the positive side, though, there are so many different energy businesses that could be disrupted by blockchain technology, right? So even when you think about the newer trend of decentralized physical infrastructure, now there are applications in the electricity grid type of world where people are now there is incentive, because blockchain is all about incentive mechanisms, right, and crowdsourcing. So now they develop this incentive mechanism where they encourage people to actually plug back to the power network or energy they don't use, and they get certain rewards. So that's just one use case where crypto or blockchain could be actually positive to the environment. And lastly, now there's, even for Bitcoin mining, right, there are like waste coal fields or other byproducts from the natural gas mining process. If you don't use them, they're wasted energy anyway. So there are mining companies actually harvesting those wasted energies to mine Bitcoin, which produce revenue for them.
Okay. So I guess what is y'all's long-term outlook on crypto? You look at your altcoins, you look at your, I don't know, you look at any, you can look at any L2 altcoin, they're still underperforming. We have the crypto ETF, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you look at the outflows, money is just washing back and forth between the two. So at what point would you say we're too mature in this cycle? Because there's only so much liquidity, Fed's already cut rate, and we're still not back at all-time highs. Are we too mature in the market where, say, your hedge fund managers, your Wall Street is no longer looking at crypto, is looking at different investments that are more less risky with higher growth potential?
I guess I could address that too. I actually I write an investment weekly. You're all welcome to check it out. It's called Decentral Capital. So macro plays a very important role nowadays for the entire crypto market. If you study the past, I would say 2 cycles is probably more relevant when there are even altcoins, right? The crypto cycle usually runs 3 to 5 years. So from trough to peak, it's usually 3 years. And if you use last cycle's pattern to this cycle, we are more than halfway in. Meaning if you just mimic what has happened in the last cycle, I think the market is probably going to peak in the first half of 2025. But that being said, there's a lot of things driving the altcoin prices, right? Liquidity being a very important one. I think liquidity is not just Fed cutting rates, right? It's really about the money printing that has to refinance the growing global debt, right? I think crypto being a very reflexive, risky asset class is where excess liquidity will chase when time comes. But people say crypto trade 24/7. So from a trading day perspective, it's already much more than equity. So equity cycle, if it's 5 to 10 years, crypto is much shorter, right? So even if altcoins are going to have a rally, it's not going to be sustainable. So again, going back to crypto, again, at this stage, is still very early stage investing. So could be huge returns, but you have to select the right project. So I wouldn't promise if you invest in crypto, it will beat S&P. Ultimately, it depends on what project you invest in.
I will add on to it that, U.S. equity market started in 1700s, right? Crypto, 15 years only. So we're still very early. I would probably never use a mature as a word for this market. And the trading volume is only going higher. Not only U.S., outside of U.S., Korea has the highest trading volume ever, and it's just picking up in 24/7. So to me, from a high level perspective, right? This is a new economy that you should be involved in, or at least check it out, right? And then the trading volume, it never stops. All this newly developed currency trading strategy. There's a lot more to come. So yeah, should get excited about it.
And I think it also depends on your kind of own investment strategy too. Are you a long-term investor? You could just think about dollar cost averaging and over time it all even out. Whereas if you're trying to trade and you're trying to put in money now and sell it at the peak later, which is very difficult to do, something that I've noticed on my side, especially when it comes to the altcoins and the meme coin space, and it tends to follow the same benchmark as Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin is up, I see all of my meme coins up. I see all of the alternatives up as well. And then another thing that I'd spoken to, I think, on our phone call last week was just unlocking, when VCs are able to sell out and how much they're able to sell out, and then if they will sell on the other retail everyday investors like us holding it. So that's also very interesting insight because Chewy was one of them. Their coin went up, I believe, from 0.60 cents to 1.7, and then I believe it's on October 1st, there was a $120 million unlock.
Last question.
What do you guys think the weak point is in the whole DeFi ecosystem? Is it the compliance you feel like is lacking, or it's public adoptions is not there yet? What do you think the weak link is in the whole ecosystem?
Regulation is a big one, right? Because there's people argue whether the decentralized trading exchanges should be regulated, right? Before there's clear regulation, I don't think institutions are going to get in. They may actually run the technology in the background, but they're not going to get in. So that's one of the biggest risks. And the second is really just, I would say, time tested, right? So we have been through 3 cycles, and I think the borrowing and lending specifically has been tested and has shown resilience, but you just need a lot of stress scenario tests to make sure the system is robust enough.
I think sentiment and education around what is a good investment versus not. I'm sure we're all familiar with the crash of FTX, Alameda, and Celsius, right? We all trusted these big figures who spoke very well, went to conferences, and seemed very smart, but at the end of the day, they ended up losing millions of dollars. And so I think a lot of people are still burned from that, and unfortunately, we do need regulation to kind of prevent people getting rugged or people getting money taken away from them unfairly. So I think we just need to have more education about what is a good investment, what's not, and understanding what we should actually be putting our money into.
I think last question, if you could give one advice to someone interested in getting into more deeply in crypto, what would it be?
Okay. I think put yourself out there. One of the things that I really found success in, and as we all know, is when I put myself out there on social media or going to these conferences and just saying hi to people. I never know who I'm going to meet because everyone's a CEO nowadays, so I meet so many CEOs. But also, you never know who's really going to take off, right? I think there is going to be a time when a lot of these companies will essentially merge or fail. But if you met someone at, let's say, a party and you were able to connect with them, or maybe you DM someone asking them about, their company, eventually you'll have friends within the ecosystem that can give you information, and also friends will give you alpha, right? Which is hey, look at this new project, they're invested by this, and then you start to learn not only from news publications but word of mouth. And I think that by the time it does reach news publications, you're already too late. So it's really good to establish those connections, put yourself out there, chat with anyone, because you don't know who you're going to meet. For example, I went to a crypto party on a rooftop, and I started talking to someone. He says, "Oh, I make meme coins." I'm like, "Which one?" He's like, "All of them." And then I later realized that their platform, as a 19-year-old, generates $33.3 billion a month. So you never know who you're going to meet, and I think that's just don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, I would have to agree. All my DeFi bro friends are in their 20s, and I talk to them on a regular basis. So I would say, in general, stay curious, right? I think that's just life, right? Like, that's why you guys are here and be open to learn. And I think secondly, just check out like Discord. I'm not a gamer, but I'm on it, right? I think that's the easiest way to just check out different channels. It's very easy because like people, it's real-time comments and feedback, and you can see what people are talking about. It's very easy to understand like what's happening in the crypto world. And I would say DeFi Llama, that's like a great website. Just poke around. I think there's a lot of data, and then it's very easy for you to see the data and the trade and what's going on in the crypto world.
Look, I think it's really the best time to build in crypto. It's democratizing at different levels, right? At the investment level, now you have access to early stage companies. At the regional level, now you have access to work with talents from everywhere in the world. And at the age level, where now young people have a chance, and even young people wanting to work for a VC, I think the bar is much lower than if you want to break into the Wall Street crowd, right? And on the other hand, I agree with my co-panelists that you have to try yourself, get your hands dirty, because otherwise you'll forever argue or talk at a theoretical level, right? Open a Coinbase account, find your best crypto podcast. If you don't have one, Bankless is a great one. It's very easy to understand, has a very positive vibe. Get yourself out there, try it, and buy your first Bitcoin. I think that's the only way you can really get to the vibe and what it really is.
You don't have to buy an entire Bitcoin. So if you don't have $60,000 waiting around,
buy $1.
Yeah, you can invest $1. Yeah, it's fractional shares.
I think that's all. Thank you so much.